Guys, Matt Haycox here, and welcome to another episode of No Bollocks with me, Matt Haycox. And today we've got Ben Heath in the virtual house with us. Ben's the founder of Heath Media. He is a Google Ads expert, Meta Ads expert, and I guess what we call in the trade a performance marketer. So, Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to talking.
Before we get into the specifics of performance marketing and meta, where do so many small businesses go wrong with their marketing? And I guess a more direct question of that is why don't business owners know how to market?
I think a lot of business owners do what I did, and they start with something that they want to sell, product, service, whatever, and they're almost surprised when they start their business that no one buys it just because it exists. So they approach the whole thing from okay, I now need to learn marketing to sell this thing that I'm really interested in and want to sell, as opposed to it being a core part of the business. So I think a lot of business owners start their marketing journey a little bit kicking and screaming because it's not what they wanted to do. It's kind of they see it as a necessary evil. And so that sets them up to fail in the beginning. And then I think from then on, they get into the world of, okay, how do I do this? They might consume some content online. And there's lots of people pushing the idea that if you just click the right buttons on a certain ad platform, or if you just do a bit of this or a bit of that, that it's really easy and you're going to generate leads and sales. And they don't approach it with the mindset of this is a skill. And I've used this analogy before, but I think it's a really good one for business owners thinking about getting involved, marketing their business and doing this properly. No one would ever start playing tennis for the first time, play 2 or 3 rounds with a friend or something like that, then enter a tournament at the weekend and expect to win. They'd get smashed. They'd be playing against people who've been playing for years. Of course, they'd barely win a point, right? And you would expect that with tennis. No one would then say tennis doesn't work. But that's exactly what business owners do with marketing. So they will watch your YouTube videos, have a little go at something, didn't get any sales, didn't get any leads, marketing doesn't work, or this form of marketing doesn't work. So they completely approach it from the wrong mindset. It's a skill. It's something that you can develop over time or work with people that have the skill if you've got the funds to do it. But it's absolutely an integral part of the business. And if you want your business to go beyond something really small, you're going to have to find a way to consistently and reliably generate customers, and that's what great marketing does.
I like your analogy because I'm an analogy guy, but I always have one particular analogy that I wheel out when it comes to talking about business in general, and I guess why I think so many people are bad in business, and I always use the sporting analogy of the fact that because business has such a low barrier to entry. And because there is no scorecard, I mean, okay, we can say that how much money you make is the scorecard, but it's also can be subjective. That I think that's why it gives people such a kind of a deluded ego when it comes to business. I always say, listen, if you picked up a football for the first time today, you would never possibly think you should go and stand on a pitch at the weekend with Beckham and Messi. You shouldn't even think you should be playing five-a-side, and you just inherently know that. But because you can start a business by literally opening a company for 10 quid, or not even opening a company, just being a sole trader, and that barrier to entry is so low, people just naturally then think they're in the same territory as an Elon Musk or a Richard Branson or someone who's got 30, 40, 50 years of business and success behind them, and it's a very dangerous place to be. And I think because things like sport have official coaches, official teachers and stuff, which people would take no embarrassment in learning. If I want to play tennis and I want to play better tennis, it's an obvious statement to say I'm going to go and get a tennis coach. But it's almost embarrassing, almost akin to saying, I need a life coach or a psychiatrist or something. To say I have a business coach, people seem to look at it so badly. And tying that back to marketing as a skill, I mean, for me, marketing is just something that is so fundamental to business, because I mean ultimately business doesn't exist until something's sold, and it's very difficult to sell something if you haven't got a nice flow of leads of people who want to buy it. So I think for me, as a skill set a business owner needs to earn, you have got to live and breathe marketing all the time. And That's not to say, obviously, as any business grows, you delegate and delegate as things move on. But for me, marketing is something that can never be truly delegated and pushed off. Yes, you might work with an expert like yourself in meta ads. Yes, we might work with an external creative or whoever it's going to be. But unless you understand those nuts and bolts of marketing and what does that look like to your business, I just think your business is doomed to failure.
Well, I like to break things down to their like basic core elements, and then you can expand from there. It helps simplify for me. So if you think about a successful business, there's three core parts to it. You've got to sell the thing, you've got to deliver the thing, and then you've got some sort of operational system that makes sure that everything runs properly. And that's at its very core, that's what most businesses are. So selling the thing is, like you said, absolutely important and really key. There's another thing you mentioned around people being skeptical around business coaches, and they do that in the marketing space as much as anything else. And I think that's, whereas they wouldn't in, say, a sporting activity, seem much more natural. I think in part that is the coaching industry's fault. Because if you hire a tennis coach and you start playing tennis and they're not very good, you can see that obviously and immediately and think, okay, I'm not going to keep working with you, I'm not going to take your advice, like, you're not very good. Whereas there are a lot of business coaches earning $5,000 a month. It's like, do you really want to take that guy's advice? Like, he's probably not the best source of information. So I think, there's been a lot of people claiming to be what they're not and trying to sell coaching off the back of it that has given people a lot of skepticism. But that doesn't mean you have to just completely ignore that whole side of things. In marketing, as in the rest of the business, there's going to be really good people that you can learn tons from and can speed you up on your path to getting to where you want to go.
Well, let's talk marketing specifically in the context of your business and what you do for people. When I introduced you, I called you a performance marketing expert. For those who don't know what it is, how would you describe performance marketing?
Yeah, so it's basically clients will come to us with their budget and they want that back with extra, effectively. And performance marketing good performance marketing is being able to get the largest return out of what they give you back to them. That's going to vary massively between businesses. Some are going to need much larger returns than others, depending on, margins and volume and what it is they're looking to do. But at its core, that's what performance marketing is. And in a lot of cases, it's going to be nowadays things like Instagram, Facebook advertising, Google advertising. A client wants a 4x return on ad spend. So they've got £10,000 a month to spend, and that needs to generate £40,000 a month of sales for it to work. Anything above that, great. Below that, you've got an issue. So at its basic, that's what it effectively is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just the cherry on the top, if you like, for me is that in that performance marketing definition, there's a very clear ROI target. Like you say, somebody wants X return on ad spend, but with performance marketing, you can very much track it. Many other advertising channels, okay, they work. You might even know they work positively, but with performance marketing, I've put £1 in and I've got £1.07 back or 93 pence back, and until I can make that be in excess of £1, I can't scale it.
Yeah, I do think that. And that is great, and that is really helpful, and that helps justify the marketing spend on a lot of these things because business owners feel much more comfortable knowing what they're getting back. I do think that over the last decade, that has led to too many businesses being too focused specifically on the immediate return and not thinking enough about the longer term or the brand. I gave a talk recently where I was comparing McDonald's average order value, so how much someone spends one time when they come into McDonald's versus their lifetime value. And the average order value for McDonald's is about $9 each time someone goes in. But the lifetime value of a customer on average is $5,000 plus. So that's an extreme example. But if you're making your calculations as a business thinking, right, we only get $9 in every time we make a sale, what can we afford to acquire that customer in advertising costs? $3 maybe? A 3x return on ad spend, maybe as a maximum? Well, that basically rules out any form of advertising. You're not going to get customers at scale for $3 each. It's not going to be possible. But if you realise your customers are worth more than $5,000 each, you could pay 100 times that and still be really profitable for you to acquire a customer. So it's a good place to start from, but the next level is to go, you know what, maybe we can make a slight loss on that initial customer acquired because we're going to make it up and then some over the long run. Maybe we do need to put an ad in front of someone 15 times for them to buy. And when you've paid for 14 impressions, you can see it as a cost, but you haven't got anything back in yet. That extra impression gets them over the line and covers, and then some, all the cost of the previous advertising. So in all those scenarios where you're looking at ad spend and the short-term cost versus the short-term return, your actual return is significantly better than that because of what I just talked about, all that compounding effect. Those people that refer someone else in 3 weeks' time, that's not accounted for in the numbers yet. So yeah, just something people need to watch out for, because I've seen a trend towards that for sure.
So whilst I couldn't agree with you anymore, I also feel like you're giving your prospects far too much credit in being able to have these kind of conversations. I mean, how often does an SME business owner come to you and understand CAC and lifetime value, and how that is going to allow you to lose their money on an upfront advertising campaign?
It depends how many of my videos they've watched, to be honest. Because I get people who've been watching my stuff for 2 years and they get it right. But
I say that in jest,
yes,
but it's so very true, you know. And like you say, yes, because there's so many ways you could look at it, and you could say, well, we can. How can we tweak the funnel? How can we tweak the funnel to make it more profitable at the front end?
Yeah.
Or is it never going to be profitable? And there's a million directions you can go in, but unless you have the knowledge to understand the difference between lifetime value and minimum order, or not minimum order, but one-off order value, and then effectively have the balls to see it through, and the upfront funding to do it, then you're going to be fighting an uphill battle from day one, aren't you?
Yeah, for sure. That's nearly always us having that conversation. We're the instigators of it when we're having that with clients. But often people will say things, we've worked with clients before where we're getting a 10x return on ad spend. So spending $1,000, we're getting $10,000 back, for example. We have a lot of US-based clients, so I often use dollars as the example. Getting $10,000 back, and they'll be like, it's a bit disappointing. We're like, really? What are your margins? Unless your margins are terrible, this should be cause to celebrate and scale. So there's a lot of mindset shifting around that, reframing that this can be fantastic. And I've spoken to also a lot of small businesses that never been down the route of getting any external funding, and almost seeing, I've had the conversation with quite a few people where they say, well, why would you want to give a piece of your company? Why not just go a little bit slower and self-fund? And I think what they're missing is often that part, is that, yes, but a lot of these funded companies will be really aggressive on their marketing with that budget. They will acquire an enormous amount of customers that will pay off over time. PayPal might be one of the classic examples from many years ago, where they literally just paid people to start using PayPal. Everyone got, I think it was $10. I think they increased it maybe to $20. And then if you referred a friend, you both got $10. And when they were doing this, they were absolutely hemorrhaging cash, but they were building a massive customer base. And now most people will use PayPal at some point.
I was just saying, or you can study religiously the Russell Brunson Expert series of books and learn how to make every day one offer self-liquidating.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you can. I was going to say, you absolutely can. And in my business, we would never acquire a customer for anything close to what we make, even on that initially. We're really comfortable on that. But there just is a place for some businesses to be able to go beyond that and be more aggressive. Most aren't there. To be honest, what you were saying around your struggle talking with a lot of SMEs around convincing them, if we can often get them to the point where the initial transaction is self-liquidating, even that's a struggle a lot of the time. They want there to be more margin in there. And you go, what? Unless your business is geared up to be one-time purchase or infrequent purchases, this could be great. You deliver a great product or service, and then it keeps going. And I think part of the reason why there's a lot of difficulty for business owners to get their head around that is because they don't have enough belief in what they offer. I think a lot of them will go, yeah, and they might not say this out loud, but when they're thinking to themselves later, they're going, yeah, but are we really going to turn that person that buys one pair of shoes from us into someone who buys 20 more pairs over the next 5 years? Is our stuff really good enough to doing that? Because for this, what I'm describing to work, that has to be true. That has to be the case. So that factors into your initial marketing as well. How good's your stuff really to be able to get people to come back and buy again and again? Because that changes your front end metrics.
Most business advice, it's motivational fluff. It's empty promises and it's untested ideas by people who have never even tried to apply them. It's bollocks, but you're not going to get that here. And that is why I call it No Bollocks. The No Bollocks newsletter is straight talking, high impact, zero time wasting, tried, tested, and immediately actionable. 2 emails a week, insider strategies, brutally honest insights, and the answers to the questions that you're asking, or you should be asking. And the best part, you're going to learn more in 10 minutes than most people learn in a 3-year MBA. Over 20,000 people a week are already in. So don't be the one that's missing out. Hit the link in the show notes, because you just need one email that could be the one that changes everything.
So business owner picks up the phone to you. They've got budget for paid ads. They don't know exactly how they're going to spend it. How do you then decide for them whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Google Ads? You know, what is it? Is it business dependent? Should they spread their eggs? How does that conversation go?
It is business dependent. I'm not a huge fan of spreading budgets across multiple platforms unless you've got one to work and there's extra budget to play with. I think otherwise you spread yourself too thin, particularly small business owners, and then it's easy to panic, feel like nothing's working. Whereas if you've got one that you know is producing a return, as long as you're not taking that out for other reasons, you've got some funds to play with to like expand to other platforms. Most of the time when a client contacts us, they will have tested one or multiple platforms. So we're rarely and I think that's more and more common nowadays, where they'll DIY it a little bit and have a go. So most of the time we are going to look at the data they already have and use that to decide. If they don't, if it's a business that's not done anything, they've gotten to a larger scale to the point where they can work with a company like us from some other form of marketing, rarely, I was going to say referrals, rarely is it purely referrals, but they might have some cold calling or some sort of strategy for acquiring customers consistently. And honestly, we'll just look at our existing client base and what we've done previously, because we've worked with something like close to 5,000 clients across the world over the last almost decade. So we have worked with just about, and because of the nature of how businesses find us is through my content, we're not niche specific. So we work with every type of business in all types of industries. So we just have a look back at, oh, okay, yeah. So when one of our media buyers was working on that account, what did you do? What worked for them? This is a similar business. Great, we'll go ahead and implement the same thing.
So let's kind of drill that down into a real life example. Let's pick one of my businesses, just to give it a bit of colour and context. And so I have a business called Funding Guru that provides business loans to SME businesses in the UK. Now, let's say if I'm adding the marketing knowledge I've got, I'd say, well, we could go Google Ads, which would be search based. You know, someone's putting their hand up and actually saying, yes, I want a business loan, and it would come up there. Or we go Meta, Facebook, Instagram, where I might be able to target it to people that I think fit the audience profile of a business owner, but ultimately they're not searching for business loans. It would be more interrupt based type content. I mean, if I've come to you in this semi-real life example, having not spent money in either of those two departments yet, how do we pick one or the other? Because they both sound like they've got their logics, but they also sound very different.
Yeah, so there I can draw on real world example as well. So there's a mentee part of my mentorship program that has a very similar business in the US. I've done quite a bit of work with him on discussing this. So what they have found with that business is that Meta provides the largest volume of leads. LinkedIn works quite well in terms of advertising for being able to reach people quite specifically. So whilst that cannot provide the same volume, the quality is really high. So they've consistently run ads on both. That company stopped running ads on Google, and I can explain why. Because there is the intent to advertise with people searching, looking for business loans, you're going to pay a lot more in terms of cost per click there than you will on somewhere like Meta or even LinkedIn, which is going to be more expensive than Meta. That works for you provided you can make more money than your competitors from those people that have that search intent. Now, this business specifically, the example that I'm talking about, they don't offer as large a loan size as a lot of their competitors. So because of that, they're not able to make as much money on average as their competitors, which means their competitors can effectively outbid them for that relatively small number of high intent searches that you're going to find on Google. So in determining whether or not Google will be viable for you, that would be my question, would be, what are your loan sizes in comparison to your competition? Can you offer as much? Can you offer more? And can you make as much money? If you can make more than your competitors, you can outbid them. Happy days. Google's going to be a great place, and we can mainly use Meta for retargeting in that instance. Without that, Meta's going to be better for cold.
Would you see another downside of intent-based search, the fact that whilst it's a good thing that someone's got intent, the bad side of it is that they've probably got the intent to shop the market heavier, and that invariably, if I'm getting a lead from Google pay-per-click, then 5 or 6 of my competitors are probably also getting it at the same time because they're smashing it out to everyone. Whereas if you're interrupting someone semi-unexpectedly who just happens to fit the right audience avatar, they're probably not in the mood to go and be disloyal so early in the game.
Yes, we do find that with a significant purchase, that will be true for more impulse purchases. For significant purchases like taking out a business loan, even if they've been interrupted on Meta, most customers, once they say have an initial call with a company or begin the application process, might then look to shop around. So I think they might do it anyway, but a little bit later on, less so with something that's a less significant purchase. I think with any intent-based advertising, so primarily talking here about Google search, having an offer that is superior to what your competitors offer and having that offer be demonstrably superior is beneficial. So in the case of small business loan, it's going to be better rates, better terms, more likely to approve, something along those lines, right? So if you can clearly show that in your Google ad, then the shopping around doesn't really matter as much because you have the superior offer, you have the better rate, people are going to come to you. If you can't demonstrate that, yeah, that's going to be difficult, and you're going to find it harder to get that conversion.
So I had a performance marketing guy on the podcast over the last couple of weeks who is more specifically into Meta. Doesn't do any Google ads, but so very specifically to Meta. And I oversimplified the conversation we had. He basically said we don't do any manual meddling on the Facebook and Instagram ad campaigns. You know, we leave it all to the algorithm because ultimately, with all the data points they've got and all the AI, etc., that they've got, they'll either do it better than us, or we can't economically do it better than leaving it to them. And the only place you can add value, and the place you will add absolutely massive value, you know, to the either great success or great failure, is in the actual content, the actual creative that you're showing on those ads.
I think that's partly correct, what he said there. So if you can optimize for the end objective, so a sale, you're advertising for an e-commerce business, that's spot on. Meta knows exactly what you want. They know how to optimize for it. They have all the data points, far more than us advertisers, and can therefore go and get you the best results. But there are other types of businesses where rarely do you want to fully take control and try and manually override lots of different things. But there are times where you might need to do so partially, depending on the business. So if you're optimizing for, say, a lead, well, unless you have relatively sophisticated tracking setup, it is not going to know which leads go on to convert. So you might need to sort of put your finger on the scale to say, I know, Meta, that these leads here cost a little bit more than these other leads, and you would normally just default to getting me the cheapest leads possible, but we need to factor in conversion rates as well. So I'm actually happy to pay 20% more for these other type of leads. So yeah, so I think what he said is mostly right, but there are times where you need to do things like that. There are also scenarios where you can't track the end conversion. Let's say you are selling something through a third-party website, not through your own website, one like the big e-commerce players, then you can't necessarily track the conversions that come through your Amazon, in which case you are going to need to more manually adjust things on the campaign level, the ad set level, in order to direct not just traffic to that Amazon page, for example, but the better quality traffic that is more likely to convert. So provided Meta has clear visibility over the end objective, absolutely fine. Without that, I think you're asking too much of the system.
So you've got a very popular YouTube channel of your own. You've also hosted a podcast for a while as well. Talk to me about the power of personal brand, how important that's been for building your business, and why or why not everyone should have one.
Yeah, it's I'm a huge fan of personal brands. It's absolutely what's allowed. You know, we have 60 plus people in my team. We've spent 150 million plus on ads. There's no way we'd have been able to do that if it wasn't for people seeing my content, being retargeted with my ads. I think that's a big part of my personal brand, is not just organic content, but put a lot of time and effort and budget into advertising as well. So seeing my ads and having that personal brand that has led to all these customers, clients wanting to work with us. So it's been really beneficial. It's allowed my business to grow much faster than it would have otherwise because of the potential reach. It's like on my YouTube channel, I have nearly 30 million views, and this is for detailed tutorials on Meta ads primarily. I've got two separate channels, one for Google ads, one for Meta ads. The Meta ads one is much bigger. So it's really high quality interaction. Someone wants to know how to run an ad campaign. They come through, they might spend an hour watching a tutorial, really getting a lot of value from it. Of course, if they're ready in a few months' time or a few years' time to work with someone, I'm going to be one of the first person they think of, and they'll get in touch with our company. So it's tremendously beneficial. But I think going down the personal brand route, there are some things that people absolutely need to be aware of. So if we take YouTube channels that are Meta ads focused, there might be 1,000, a few hundred, I've no idea. I would guess that those of us with the 5 biggest channels in the world get 80% of the leads and people wanting to work with us. Absolutely. Any personal brand, organic content strategy, it absolutely concentrates the reward. You can get around that by being maybe more niche. So instead of, for example, I talk about meta ads broadly, you could be like, we just do meta ads for, local businesses or something like that. Mm-hmm. Okay, well then you might get the lead instead of me because you are seen as more specific for that type of person. But the downside to that is your cap. So that's something people need to be aware of. Like, if you're going to go down the personal brand route to build a business, you have to be one of the best in that space to really win. The other thing is that as your business grows, it's the one thing you can't delegate. So I've got other people within my business to do absolutely everything. I don't do anything other than make content, plan content, and build my personal brand, because we know that's where we get so much of our business from. I can't not be the person. I can't hire someone to come and do this for me. So that's tricky from a building your business and scaling standpoint. It also makes my business very, very difficult to sell. Like, I would not be able to sell my company without some sort of really onerous earn out where I've got to continue making content for 5 years or something, because that's where so much of the leads come from. If I had my chance to do it all over again, would I go down the personal brand route? Absolutely. I think the positives outweigh the negatives, particularly in a business like marketing agencies where there's an enormous amount of competition and differentiation is incredibly important. You talked earlier about barrier to entry. There's no barrier to entry to starting a marketing agency. You just need a phone. I was going to say, and a laptop. Probably just don't even need that. Probably just get started with a phone. But a phone and a laptop and off you go. So differentiation is absolutely crucial. So I would do it again, but there are downsides. You also have to be comfortable on camera. If you get big enough, it might start impacting your life from a privacy standpoint. Or I think that's the fear of that is overblown. So yeah.
You don't find yourself walking down the streets and people going, "That's that Google Ads guy."
Very occasionally, yeah. I'd say like yeah. So just for context for people, I have just over 1 million followers across social channels with 400,000 plus subscribers on YouTube, right? And I maybe get recognized in real life once a month. And it will be someone who's very friendly, will come up to me at the gym or something and say, "Have I seen a video of you talk about Facebook?" Yeah, that's right. You see me. That's it. The only time I get properly recognized is if I go to like a marketing conference, and those are really fun because I say to people who ask me about it, it's like I basically get to be a celebrity for like 2 or 3 days. Because if that audience is into like meta ads, Google ads, and then there's a good chance that a high percentage of them will have seen my stuff. So that's really fun. No, it's I think even if I had an audience 10 times the size, it would not get in the way of my life in any way.
Do you only really generate business then using the personal brand and the YouTube channels, etc.? You don't have, let's say, non-branded sources of
No, we might get referrals from existing customers, but we don't do any active marketing that is not branded. So whether it's organic content or paid ads, it's all me. So it's all going to feature me in the content and going to come in that way. We don't do any cold calling, cold emailing, cold outreach, anything like that.
So you can give my audience a lesson in business whilst giving yourself a potential brainstorming session at the same time. Then, if you've already identified that you've got a bottleneck to selling your business in the fact that it's too reliant on you, and yes, you could correct that with a long time earn out, but it might not suit either. If you say, well, look, I want to go from here to a sale in 5 years' time. I have got 5 years' time to make my personal brand the business less reliant on my personal brand. Let's make it the cherry on the top, as opposed to the utter essential. How would you redraft a marketing plan to go and generate business now and start to diversify your income channels?
Yes, I think there's a few different options. I've definitely thought about these in the past. One would be diversify the people, so have other personalities and create almost like a suite of people that could be known. There are people who have done that.
Your staff?
Yeah. If you felt like you had people within the team that could do it, or you could look at bringing in people externally to do it. Who like specifically have that role, and they consistently create content. You sort of mix that in with my content, and over time it's not all about me, it's me and a few others. That still introduces key man risk. Those people would probably get a sniff that they've become very, very valuable and want to be compensated accordingly, which would eat into margins. I'd imagine if someone feels like, I'm bringing in £5 million a year worth of business and you're trying to pay them, 100 grand, they're going to want significantly more than that. So that, starts to become a significant cost, or they threaten to walk away and they could take some of their audience because the audience is loyal to the person as opposed to like the company brand. Mm-hmm. So I've thought about that and decided not to do it for those reasons, because I think there's too many potential issues. I think the other way, and this is the way we would more actively pursue, is that we've worked with a lot of small businesses, a lot of medium-sized businesses, and some larger companies. What I want us to be able to do is work with more and more of those large companies. And then the structure of the marketing is going to be quite different. It's going to be less reliant on my personal brand. It's going to be more reliant on, we've produced some fantastic results for these companies. We are going to look to leverage that to work with other larger companies and operate in that way. So we're part of like the top tier of agency partner programs in the UK, and there's only 50 agencies with Meta that are in that size. And when we signed up to it, and you have to have a certain level of spend in order to get there. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's quite a lot, millions every month. And when we signed up to it, the rep that manages the partner program was absolutely shocked at how many ad accounts we had. We had something like just over 800 ad accounts in our business manager between our membership program and our done for you clients. And she said that this is not how any other business gets to this level of like ad spend and things like that. All the other businesses they work with, let's say 12 to 50 much larger companies with much larger budgets, whereas we've often worked with smaller companies with budgets in the tens of thousands or low hundreds of thousands as opposed to the millions. So I think our path to sale is to move more towards that higher end and larger contracts, less reliant on people watching my content and coming through that way, I think is how we do it. But like I'm not concerned personally with selling the business. It's not something I'm actively looking to do. I'm quite happy to be the personal brand. I even think with the personal brand approach, once you get big enough, it starts to matter less. So if you think of all the biggest companies in the world, like all the big tech companies, they all have personal brands associated. But like Mark Zuckerberg could sell Meta tomorrow, no problem. Even in the agency space, you look at like Gary Vaynerchuk, who's built VaynerMedia. He very much built that off his personal brand. But I'm pretty sure now it would have enough standalone value where he wouldn't need to be actively involved just because of the scale they've reached and the massive clients they work with.
So what is the next step for you? What's the next few years of business hold?
So I have a business partner that very much focuses on the operational side of things, and he's brilliant. He obsesses over things like client churn, retention, fighting for those extra percentage points. How can we delight customers, keep them longer? Things that have really grown the business recently. He's like quite a detailed guy. I'm much more of I want to try and swing for the fences and do something that can 5x, 10x the business. And from my side of things, I think the only way to do that is to blow up my personal brand and take me from 1 million followers to 10 million followers, try and get on a lot more podcasts and get a lot more media exposure, grow my social channels, and try and branch. Actually, we talked about personal brand quite a lot. Try and branch out of one of the places I've ended up, which is in that niche of Meta ads, Google ads, and not just be seen as the Meta ads guy, the Google ads guy, but also being seen as a marketing personality, as a business personality that has the potential to have a much larger reach, larger audience. And, even if I don't think that if I'm talking about marketing in general, basically that would still translate into us being able to get more clients for our Meta ad services, because how many businesses are wanting to run ads on Meta or Google? Like most at some point are gonna try that. But the potential reach is that much larger if you go broader. So that's my plan.
Well, listen, Ben, it's been a pleasure talking to you, buddy. I have to admit I wasn't familiar with your channel before, but I am certainly going to subscribe myself. And for anyone else who's been listening, who wants to find you, whether that's just to watch a bit of content or whether they've heard something you've said and they've got a business and they want to reach out, we'll put some stuff in the show notes. But what's the best way for people to contact you?
Yeah, so they can literally just search Ben Heath, my name, and I'll pop up on YouTube or other the socials. I'm not the professional poker player. I'm the other one because there is a professional poker player that's a Ben Heath. But yeah, I'll pop on all the socials and people can find out stuff there, or they can come through to our website, which is heathmedia.co.uk, and they can get in touch there if they're interested in services. They can book a free call, all that stuff.
Perfect. Well, thanks a lot again, buddy. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Great to chat.
Right, let me just press stop. Nearly pressed leave stu.
Thanks for tuning in to No Bollocks with Matt Haycox. Today's conversation was packed with actionable insights, and I'm super grateful that you joined us. Now, our community now boasts 160,000 downloads a month of this podcast, and that is a testament to entrepreneurs just like you who refuse to settle for mediocrity. So don't miss out. Subscribe now and gain exclusive access to the conversations that can transform your business and transform your life. Also, while you're at it, if you could visit www.matt-haycox.com or click the link in the show notes below, and please sign up to the No Bollocks newsletter. That's like the sister newsletter that lives with this podcast. Every week I send 2 emails, and in just 10 minutes you're going to gain more knowledge than most people doing a 3-year MBA. So please subscribe, rate, share this episode with someone who needs a No Bollocks boost. And until next time, keep hustling and keep winning.